One round put into the books. Now there is more on the horizon. If one round proved anything last time out when we were racing with you over the course of Sebring, it's that no race is over until the final lap of the race is put together. With that in mind, you now sit with a wonderful opportunity to look at some of these drivers and say, what is the next phase of this championship going to look like? Here at round two, we find ourselves on the edge of Seneca Lake here at Watkins Glen, a circuit that has operated since 1956, and we are getting ourselves set then for this second round's worth of action. 5.41 kilometers in length, the boot layout being run here today, which means we will be holding that chicane run, which just tempers off the speed going into the carousel, the outer loop as it's known, before you take yourself down to the lowest section of the circuit, which is of course going through the instep of the boot, through the toe, along the sole, and back up the heel again before running towards turn number 9. Now, with Christian Novev getting his victory last time out in GT3 Pro, he will be the one that everyone sort of looks at and says, you are the benchmark out there, as we are currently in the midst of practice, about 3 minutes away from the start of qualifying, the 35 minutes available here in that qualifying, which will be broken down into 3 distinctive categories here in your SimGear GT Masters Championship run that we've got here in 2025. Brought to you, of course, on Pitlane.TV, and my name, of course, being Jake Sperry. But when it comes to the championship, Christian Novev had himself a fantastic run and show as he picked up 70 championship points to hold himself on top compared to his main rivals around him. That then left in second position, of course, Sotorov, and then following that, Ivanov pulling up to third position in the championship. And it is worth noting how those points break down. It's 70, 63, 58, and then 55, 51. And it continues on down with 2-point increment and 1-point increment as it gets in. Serafimov holding the GT3 AM category championship overall then after the opening rounds worth of display. So that just goes to show you the differences there, as Ivo Serafimov does hold that in terms of regards, ahead of Dimitrov in second position, Maxim Dimitrov, and then Roy Viveka for Mach Speed Racing in third position in that championship. It was dominant as well in GT4 for Martin Yankov, who in the 110 car has got the car doing very well in practice, but on top as it stands in the championship on 27 championship points, 3 points clear of Nikolai Mikov in second, and then Rostislav Koshev, who is in third position in that championship. So there is still a lot to play for, and the points definitely going to work interesting in terms of the increment that they have to deal with as we watch with about 1 minute and 10 seconds to go. The 1:10 machine there of Martin Yankov, the fastest driver in practice as things currently stack out to be, and will certainly be looking for this race to say this is going to be another chance to jump up to the highest echelons and say that the pace is still very much there. Alex Stefanov then running through the chute corner and really jumping up over the boundaries there with the BWT inspired livery there on his 112 McLaren here. 23rd position currently overall, second in category in practice on a 152.7, and I think it is very nice to see that 570S out there and playing. We don't often get to see too many 570Ss in certain areas of championships. It's a car that's very in demand in GT4, so it is very good to see it out there as he pulls over. But we focus then with one Mr. Christian Novev, who puts himself then in that second position in practice, so still proving that there is pace to be had here today. But the checker flag is about to come out then in this practice, and that will mean we will switch ourselves over then towards qualifying here in the SimGear GT Masters. And if you are new and you're here for the first time watching sim racing action with us here on Pitlane.TV, here is how it's going to break down. These qualifying sessions are set at 35 minutes, but we're only going to be using 33 of those minutes to guarantee the lap times in, and they are divvied out, essentially. They're divided out into groups of 11 minutes each. So after 11 minutes worth of time, that's how much GT4 has to work with to put their best time on the board. After GT4 is done, then we move over to GT3 AM that are allowed their 11 minutes to go and qualify. And then finally, you've then got your GT3 Pro, which will be out there and racing here around this Watkins Glen circuit to go and put their best times on the board. Alexander Nikolov Jr. then will be the first driver out then on circuit and will be dedicating his lap time find out there on track and hoping that he will get a lot of work in that Negative Delta Academy car there with the traditional pink and purple that you see there on the front with the white accenting there on the sides of the car, moving down through to the lowest point of the circuit here in upstate New York. He'll be chased here over this qualifying by Alex Stefanov and Martin Yankov, whose BMW M4 G82 was absolutely fantastic over at Sebring, and certainly we'll be looking for a little bit more. This circuit is a lot easier, I'd feel, than Sebring on the drivers. It's definitely a lot less lumpy and bumpy, but where you did have flat, now you've got elevation change to deal with around what is a street circuit style feel. When you come to Watkins Glen, you can see the guardrails just hanging over certain areas of this track and everybody eyeing up. So the R&R JRS cars have gone out together because we are in an open qualifying session rather than what is known as a closed qualifying session. For those who don't know the difference between open and closed qualifying typically means that drivers, when they go out there, do not see any other driver around. They can race at the same time, they can race on the same piece of track, but effectively it's one track to yourself when you go out there and qualifying. When you drive in an open qualifying session, as you can see right now with Roban Skelton, the 102, and maybe we can focus for a lap with Roban to see what sort of times are going to be put on the board. It's a case of you will have draft around you, so you will give draft to drivers behind, and you can take draft from drivers in front. Down the hill then, over the crest, and in towards the 90, turn number 1. This used to be the final corner on this circuit when it first opened as public road, all the way back in 1956, and up the S's section, that run between turns 1 and 2 used to be the start-finish straight. You've got to be very careful of the wall on the outside, exiting turn 3, because when you get to turn 4, you're up at the highest point of the circuit, dancing your way between the trees, but watch out for your braking marker. You can see there the yardage boards on the left-hand side, giving that ideal run to the bus stop, and then immediately off of the exit, you got to try and get yourself as much turn-in as possible here for the outer loop, because you're trying to maximize the carry off of the exit, and these corners are very open in profile, so you just lunge and lean and wait and wait and wait, entering the chute now and over towards the toe of the boot. A very deceptive corner, because when you hit the brakes down the hill, it does plateau and flatten out as a corner, but as you turn around the corner, it does grace itself back uphill again. So it is very easy to be too eager on the power. Understeer is something that's very common through the toe of the boot, and also what's very common there at the toe of the boot is also going to be spinning up the rears the moment you think the power's on. Now, drivers can go as wide as they like when they run through the heel of the boot, and they don't have to worry about off-track limits. And we do need to talk about instant limits, because if you drive the entire race over the course of this one, it will be an hour here today without picking up an instant point at all. That's an extra 2 championship points in the back pocket. So 1:53.0, the time to beat, currently set then by Alex Stefanov, who has put that car in the 112 on the pole for the moment in GT4. 1:54.7 from Roban Skelton, so down by 1.7, all things considered. And Rusty Koshev couldn't really find much either there on a 1:54.7. So very even out there in terms of their times. There is the Castrol colours out there going through the chicane of Valentin Stemenkov, who now looks around in the 109. Third position with that first time, 0.6 of a second off of the pace, well, 6.5 of a second in that McLaren 570, but at least for the moment, that drive which is needed, you'll be keeping an eye on these times to see where the sectors improve, and a purple second sector from Martin Yankov is exactly what the doctor ordered. Still green in sector 3, so definitely gained a little bit more on what his best time is, and is certainly looking at eyeing up back-to-back pole positions in category, knowing that Alex Stefanov is looking to try and make that charge. So we will see how that all plays out. And when you're looking around at the championship, this is the first start of the season for Alex Stefanov, so has certainly not been able to put much down to say this is what we can do. Alexander Nikolov Jr., though, goes second fastest with a very lovely time, but Martin Yankov, we're just getting exactly what he wanted on the board and then some, moves a 10.5 clear in qualifying, and this is going to be very tough as far as qualifying efforts go, because I don't think they're going to actually get a chance here today to come down into the pits, get a fresh set of tyres in GT4 and go again. I think they're just going to have to work with the tyres that they've got, and keeping on the green times there of Nikolai Mikov there, who does improve on time, and Rosti Koshev also improves, moves up then to the second row on a 53.2, shedding the wings there of his teammate Robin Skelton, who's stuck still on a 54.7, so Koshev certainly has that pace. Stemenkov has dived into the pits, just the 8 or 9 out there who are looking to put times in, because Dimitar Palauzov has yet to set a representative time as far as qualifying goes in the off-track racing BMW, which is down there in the pits. But Yankov improving again in the second sector to the fastest second sector time on the board. Alex Stefanov did find a little bit of improvement in that second sector, but can't find anything in the third, and we're seeing more and more the yellow times which are going through sector by sector. Not so for Malinov, and Yankov improving again here as he gets the tyres into an operating window. In sim time worth talking about here is just about 9:30 in the morning, and so the track will only get hotter as this qualifying session continues. Overcast conditions, so don't expect too much movement of that, and no threat of rain as things currently stand. So they've got that to be a little bit more optimized about here, as again the improvement from Martin Yankov now pulls himself nearly 4/10 clear at the front with qualifying concern, and now with just 3 minutes to go before the end of qualifying, that is as simply lovely as you like. Malinov has moved up then to P5 as the sole representative of the Aston Martin Vantage, which is out there on track. Different drivers suit different types of car, and that Aston Martin with the very sleek profile is one that certainly is looking to find those improvements out there on circuit, cresting up the rise as we go back to Robin Skelton, who was still 9/10 of a second short on time then over the fastest time overall, but still was able to improve to the tune of about over a second, 1.2 seconds, all things considered. So 6th place, you'd certainly not shake a stick at that in terms of qualifying times. But there is still more to be had, as Alex Stefanov, making his first start of the season, now looks to gear up here and find those improvements. It was a green first sector by Stefanov, but hasn't found sector 2 nor sector 3 out there. Martin Yankov directly behind him, I don't think has improved, and Alexander Nikolov Jr. is down in the pit, so won't be able to get back out in time to go and complete a lap, because we're doing 1:52s out there at the moment. But in fact, he might just be on the cusp of making that happen, so we've got to keep an eye out on him to see whether he's going to make it around to set that representative flying time. A little bit further back, though, is Nikolai Mikov, moving himself to the heel of the boot at 115 kilometers an hour in his Porsche Cayman Club Sport out there right now. And then the off-camber turn number 9 on track. A very devilishly difficult corner. It's very easy to spin out there or even run wide into the grass, which causes troubles. And then you got those 2 transfer corners as we focus on car 101. Rusty Koshev then, who looks to put himself in. Yankov and Stefanov are done with their qualifying, but through the penultimate corner, they did over the last 4 or 5 years or so here on iRacing add a rescan or a retexture out there for this Watkins Glen circuit, giving that copious element of runoff, which is so important for the drivers, especially when it came to the NASCAR side of battling. And so you can go and use what are the Americanized track limits around this circuit, where so long as you do not touch the grass, you do not get an off-track incident point. So it might be a little bit easier today to pick up 2 bonus points, but Koshev, with that time, goes second on a 52.950. So we'll be very happy there to leapfrog Stefanov when he was down in the pits, and with just 15 seconds to go here in qualifying for this group. I think that's going to be that for a number of drivers. I think only 2 are out there, and that's Roban Skelton and Rostislav Koshev. And Koshev, I think, has just backed off of it here and is going to tow the car down to the pits, because 11 minutes is going to be up, and I think he's out of fuel in terms of where he's going. And Roban Skelton, I think, is also going to do something very similar, which means that your field in GT4 is set. Martin Yankov then will have the pole positioning category, with Rusty Koshev in second and Alex Stefanov, who will line up third there. It's then Alexander Nikolov in fourth, ahead of Nikolai Mikov in 5th position. Then Orlin Malinov, Roban Skelton, Valentin Stemenkov, and Dimitar Palauzov not setting a time as far as qualifying goes. But they will now look over to GT3 AM and the efforts that will be made there. 32 drivers in field here today. And so when they all look to put themselves down and say, this is where we find our pace, we will be very interested. In fact, I correct myself, 31 drivers here today. This is where pace is going to be definitely necessary out there for everybody else to go and get what they need out of it. And so you look around at the likes of Bozidar Andreev, who certainly had a good run last time out. We did have to keep an eye out on those championship points, and the fastest in practice was Panayot Karpachev, who kept himself close and honest as far as the championship battling went. But Andreev, taking penalties, dropped him down to 4th position, or technically a tie for 3rd in GT3 AM, where currently it is your top 9 drivers split by just 7 points. So the way that the point system works is that they don't have individualized championship points. They all work from 1 point system, which is very unique for a championship. Normally you'd see in endurance style championships that GT3 Pro, GT3 AM and GT4 would all have their separate championships with their own separate championship class weight in points. But here, when it comes to the SimGear GT Masters, you all play from the same hymn sheet here. So those drivers who look at 70 points for a race win, well, you're only going to be trying to pick up the scraps no matter where you are. So you look at Martin Yankov on 27 championship points. He gets there with 25 for a race win and 2 for the fastest lap, sorry, not for the fastest lap bonus point, but for 0x incident race. So I think it's very telling what these drivers all have to navigate through. Ivo Serafimov, by the way, 40 championship points right now, and that goes all the way down at the moment to the lowest scoring out there in category, which is Milan Milchev, who has got himself 24 to go with his championship points. So Milan with a lot of work to do to try and pull himself back into play. But at least right now, when it comes to their efforts, we are gearing up with these first flying laps, which are now out there on board. And we focus here on Karpachev, moving through the bus stop chicane and diving about now into the next right in the number 64 BMW M3 GT4, and now looking to really get the big car into gear through the chute and trying to hug as much as he can through this section. You can see the small tufts of grass there growing over on the left side of the circuit, indicating just how much work you do have to work with if you go off the circuit. But those first times coming in, and Bozidar Andreev then setting a time 8 seconds quicker than Martin Yankov, a 44.4 essentially there, as Joris Ooms will go second, will the Belgian. So he'll find himself half a second back in terms of his pace. These first times really starting to ratchet on down. Let's listen in to the Acura climbing up the hill then as they go through the S's section and up over the top side. This is Ivo Serafimov. Very cruelly cut away there to Maxim Dimitrov, who's there looking to make the number 62 car work out there at this moment in time, up over the hill. And fastest time that was in qualifying, and you'd certainly say brilliantly done. About a half a tenth of a second clear of Paniot Karpachev. Bozidar Andreev goes third, and Roy Vervaeke has just flicked himself up into fourth position, just about 2.5 tenths of a second, or about 2 tenths of a second, I'd say, off of the pace overall of Maxim Dimitrov. It's close here in GT3 AM today at Watkins Glen, and this is the sort of circuit that does love a good battle here and a good battle there. So Porsche, BMW, Porsche. All the Porsches looking good in Category 4 inside your top 5. You've got the Acura of Serafimov in 6th position. Then the two McLarens maybe a little bit off the pace of Mavrodiev and Katsarski, who are 8th and 9th currently in GT3 AM. So they will certainly look like they've got a bit more work to do out there with their times. But Andreev moves up and goes as close can be to pole position, 14 thousandths of a second only, the difference maker between being on pole and not being on pole for GT3 AM. So work still to be constructive, but we are still seeing times roll in. Lyubimir Velkov, for example, one of those drivers looking to improve. Stanimir Borisov put his first time on the board in his Porsche, 2 seconds adrift on a 146.3 currently as over the line they go. Now, you look around, Roy Vervaeke with 2 purple sectors there in sectors 2 and 4. Katsarski with the fastest first sector of anybody going through. So can Roy Vervaeke jump up? He's had 2 yellow sectors to go with it, and that third yellow sector means it's a 44.8. That's a real shame because he had 2 very nice sectors there, sectors 2 and 4, which will be up at the top of the hill and climbing out of the heel of the boot. So Roy Vervaeke certainly does have something about him today. It will just be a question of what he can unlock. Dimitrov taking his tyres and going back again, and we focus back then to the number 60 Porsche of Joris Ooms, who's there in 5th place, and there just coming out of the pits is Maxim Dimitrov. Very tight on the exit here, very easy, especially when you have to make a pit stop in these categories of cars that we're running today as part of the system that we've got with the fuel restrictions to the drivers at 60%. They are looking around and seeing that they do have to be a little bit alert, especially on pit exit when they're going up the S's and drivers are going to try and start screaming by them. But also on pit entry, where it's so easy to tag a driver on the inside, because that pit entry line, when you come into the pits, is directly on the racing line here at Watkins Glen, a circuit which has remained relatively unchanged, but they have made changes to this circuit, and predominantly the changes that they have made to this track have come in the face of adversity. For example, their changes that they made in 1975 to this track came into play as a result of the passing of Francois Sever in the 1973 Formula One World Championship round. Of course, a touted future world champion he was there, running as teammate to Sir Jackie Stewart, the three-time Formula One world champion. And then at the back end of 1991 into 1992, which is what brought the bus stop into play after a little bit of troubles out there and the passing of J.D. McDuffie, the NASCAR Winston Cup driver in 1991. So they have always looked to respond to what they need to do to make this circuit work. But with just a handful of minutes, 2.5 to go, Dimitrov, Andreev, Karpachev, and Viveka, your top four. Joris Ooms down in the pits in fifth, and about a 0.3 of a second gap to Ivo Serafimov, the championship leader in GT AM, the sole Acura here today of all the GT3 AM, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. But now it's about charging about and finding times up the hill. Serafimov with 2 green sectors, as we're with Maxim Dimitrov here at this moment, cresting up the rise and hoping that the time is going to work to his favor. Needs to build more buffer to the slew of Porsches here today and the BMW, which is there dancing about through this bus stop. The high curbs there are very inviting for drivers to go out there and attack. They used to be much smaller white curbs around this circuit, and not the red and yellow that you get to see currently. And I found it to be a very different drive when you go out there on track, because it's just a lot more you can take now out of the corners. Slightly missed apex there for Dimitrov going through the chute, and now at the toe of the boot, he hugs onto that apex there like it's a cuddly toy that he never wants to let go of. Karpachev down into the pits. I think that will do his qualifying no favors out there, needing set to go through, and Katsarski done as well in 7th position. So it looks like these final times are going to be very interesting to see who's going to stand head and shoulders above the rest of this field. Ivilo Dimitrov comes over the line, doesn't set a time, but we've been here with Maxim Dimitrov, who's gone quicker in Sector 3, has gone purple in Sector 4, and this might be the buffer margin that he's been searching for. Here comes Maxim Dimitrov over to the line, and it's a 44.209. Good enough. We'll call it 2:10 on the board. It was very close on the margin between them, and like that, a 10th is there as Andreev can't improve. Karpachev out of questions then to ask. What about Ivo Serafimov? Then the number 57 coming to the line, about half a second off as things stands on a 44.7. That will improve. It's a 44.5, but it's not enough to gain position. He got over the line with 13 seconds to go, but it's going to pull it over to the right-hand side to say that is qualifying done and dusted there. But wow, that was big in terms of time. Roy Viveka is down in the first sector, is down in the second sector. He needs a good third sector here to go and put his time on the board, but he doesn't get that, so he's yellow in 3 consecutive sectors. I think he's going to be stuck as the checkered flag comes out then in GT3 AM, and it looks like Maxim Dimitrov is going to stand as the driver on pole position there. Likes of Katsarski, not much he could do. Milchev only 8th position, and so it might be a case where the Belgian duo, 4th and 5th, they currently stand, are going to try and do what they can. Ivilo Dimitrov, by the way, worth noting this, hasn't set a time, so this is a must-make lap for him, because if he doesn't, he'll be starting at the back of the GTs. Here comes Dimitrov over to the line, and Ivilo puts a 45.6 down, and that's good enough for 10th place, just behind Vladimir Mavrodiev, who is there in 9th. So well worked by Ivilo Dimitrov there, getting the lime green Porsche out there into play there, and so that will be good enough for a time there. But now it is time for the big boys to play, GT3 Pro. And now these last 11 minutes worth of qualifying are going to be so critical for everyone out there. On the rear with Vladislav Shopov, who sees behind him Chris Vrajilov there to go through. Ventsislav Raichinov also on the back of him, Nikola Stanev, and of course Miroslav Sotorov, all in that group. About half a lap away is the championship leader Christian Novev, but if there is a round for someone like Vladi Shopov to respond back after the fuel miscalculation that he had at Sebring, this would be the time to go and do it. He was dominant and conquering the way that he drove away from the field. He had amassed up to a 20-second margin at one point, half of which you could argue was down to the fact that he took 10 seconds less in the pit stop and ultimately had to pay the price to go and get that back. But out of the 90, hugging that curb and trying to straight line as much as possible now through the S's, up the hill, through turn 2. You've got to get early on the turn in for turn 3, going over 240 kilometers an hour now through turn number 4, and the Leipzig powered Porsche out there for Vladi Shopov looks to try and prove its worth through the S's, and it's Porsches in the line, 1, 2, and 3 before the McLaren of Stanev, then the Porsche of Sotorov, the Acura of Yulian Janowski, who is there just behind that, and then the McLaren of Zdravko Ivanov, who managed to put himself up to 60 points rather than 58 because he was able to gain, of course, the fantastic run that was worth of championship points for having a clean race from start to finish over at Sebring. Down at the toe of the boot, Shopov lighting the timing screens up purple through the first 2 sectors and looking for a third here over the crest, and gets his third. Purple sector into play. Heel of the boot comes into view for Vladi as he now looks off of the exit of the corner here at turn number 8 and over to the off camber turn 9, and making sure that each and every single drive off of the corner is with a car that is pointy and as straight as possible. You've got the big spoiler on the back, which is keeping this GT3 Porsche planted down, a car which is known in its entirety for how well balanced it is, and coming out of the final corner, minding the safer barrier there on the exit. It's a 1:42.7, a full second and a half quicker than the fastest time in GT3 AM, and currently 0.6 of a second quicker than Stanev, who is in second position. So Shopov once again looking to prove that he's got pace, and he's got it in abundance after that first qualifying run through. So it tells you all you need to know. Christian Novev will be certainly looking around at his lap times too. Janowski could only manage in P11 overall, so he's down there really scrapping with the GT3 AM drivers out there, and so too Ventsislav Raichinov, who I think had to back off of his lap and go again. You've got Boyko Shopov out there trying to find a time, but at least for the moment, I think we just about go to him there in the JRS Lamborghini Huracan, then running over towards the line. As over the line goes Christian Novev. He goes 4th fastest on a 43.5, but Boyko Shopov to the line, 44.3 for him, and that is behind the likes of Maxim Dimitrov and also Bojidar Andreev. So this could be a very interesting game of pros and AMs today. Boyko Shopov only managing 8th place as Raichinov sets the fastest second sector of anybody. Ventsislav certainly hoping that he's got pace to burn out there as the likes of Vladi Shopov pulled over to one side, allowing himself to jump onto the back of the group. Miroslav Sotorov taking a big wide line there through the penultimate corner, and he's got to be a little bit careful about how he goes. Raichinov will dive back, though, into the pit, so not happy, obviously, with that lap, but Miroslav Sotorov coming over the line moves 3rd fastest and only about a couple hundredths off of Nicholas Stanev, so close as you like. But you are seeing those movements then. Vrajilov into 4th. That puts Christian Novev back down into P number 5. So Christian Novev needing a little bit of help out there, said that this was more home soil for him than any of the other drivers out there in the championship, and now starting to argue the question, where is the help going to come from him on this charge, on this run that he's got? So Novev making his way through the final corner, trying to get the McLaren to wake up and bite in the cold conditions here of the morning, the early morning here at Watkins Glen. 43.5 there for Novev, so still able to find improvement, but again, no positions gained. He's still 0.8 of a second off the pace of Vladislav Shopov, who's able to unlock it in spades out there, and that, I believe, was Shopov there. The other Shopov, Boyko, going 7th, 44.1 there, so was able to get out of the quagmire of the GT3 AMs as things currently look. And Shopov here is going again, and he's purple sectors 2 and 3 once more. So he's looking to again turn the screw and say, how much quicker can I go? He knows that Nicholas Stanev is going out there. The lights flashing there to say, let's not play any games here. I'm on a flying lap. So Vladislav Shopov letting it be known to Nicholas Stanev and also to Chris Vrajilov, get out of my way, and they both dive down into the pits. Here comes Vladi Shopov over to the line, 42.8. The time went away through the first and final sectors. 3 purple sectors and no improvement. That will be a little bit of a kick as he went on through, down to just 3.5 minutes here in qualifying, and hoping that there is still more to be gained out there from the qualifying efforts, knowing that Boyko Shopov and Christian Novev still out there on circuit and trying to get a bit more. This is Ventsislav Raichinov, who I believe is going to be on an outlap down in 21st position as it currently stands. Definitely out of kilter at 3.7 seconds back. I'd expect him to be up there scrapping, and it has been a negative delta top end of the championship as it comes to team standings here. And to talk about just how close the team dynamic of the championship sits in for all of these drivers. They look around. Negative delta by KK Squad, currently on top of the team standings by 111 points. And then in second with 109 is negative delta Arcane, 108 for negative delta by Madness, and a negative delta by simgear.bg on 106. So 5 points splitting the top 4 teams. After the opening rounds of the championship, Mark Speed find themselves 5th, ahead of the Yekov Rally School in 6th, with AIJRS in 7th, and Off Track Racing 8th, SLRT 9th, and R&R JRS rounding out the top 10 overall as far as teams championship is concerned. But at least for the moment, Vladislav Shopov might feel safe at 0.6 of a second clear right now, knowing that Christian Novev hasn't been able to string a lap together. Sotorov has looked pretty good, and Shopov down into the lane. There is the Acura of Yulian Janovsky, a little bit out of sorts at the moment, down in P11, 1.7 off the pace of the fastest times, but still there is attempts with 2 minutes to go. But I think Janovsky is not going to be one of them who will improve. Boyko Shopov leaving the toe of the boot, and the likes of Novev here is out on track, watching Stanev and Raichinov at the moment. Raichinov then with a green third sector, looking to find that improvement. Wasn't quicker in sector 1, wasn't quicker in sector 2. Green sector in sector 4. And now looking to charge over towards the line. What is this going to be for Ventsislav Raichinov, making that push and that progress? And over the line, it's a 43 flat, and it's good enough for the front row by a fair margin. He scythes the gap in half to Vladislav Shopov. So now there is pressure. There's a reason why Shopov's got on an outlap, but with a minute to go, I don't think he's going to be safe, so to speak, with how much time he's got left. These 35 minutes on the clock, which are 33, are running out, and running out quickly because we're down to 50 seconds. Shopov, by comparison, I think he's only just now making his way along the top side of the circuit. I think he's going to be short in terms of when the checker flag's going to come out. So sit down and watch Zdravko Ivanov, who had a clean race last time out, 3rd in the championship, not lighting the timing sheets alight right now in P7, and he's really having to rag on the car through the S's there, especially at the turn-in for the first part of the bus stop. So he's got to be really woken up to what he needs. Novev currently not improving. Raichinov not improving. Boyko Shopov struggling to find anything out there at the moment. This is really tough stuff that they've got. Only a 21-degree track, so in theory, it's not really moved much, but any sort of deviation on the track wear might be playing a factor here to whether those times can improve or not. Raichinov, again, goes quicker in the 3rd sector. So that's his best 3rd sector that he's found. Not as quick, though, through sector 4, and he might just give himself even more margin out there at the moment as we head over to the line. Checker flag will be out now here for this final attempt. They go through almost into the wall. Goes Raichinov, who moves all the way to the pit wall, trying to find any improvement out there, and that one won't count because he's found an off track somewhere or a 0x incident point. So the lap time will not be classed as clean. Shopov over to the line, I don't think got around in time. And so now you look around and say, well, who has got those improvements? Zdravko Ivanov coming to the line on a 44.2. He couldn't move up. Neither could Boyko Shopov to find his time. But you've also got drivers lining up to the pit. So I think it legitimately just leaves Vladislav Shopov on circuit. But he's got that clean as a whistle. So he will be your pole sitter no matter what happens from this point onwards with his 142.7. Everybody else is a ways away, but it is Venceslav Raichinov in the number 2 car who gives him that nearest challenge, and Nicholas Stanev in third with Miroslav Sotorov in fourth. It tells you a lot about this race and how this championship gears up. It is clear after one race, it looked like that there was a lot of pace from Vladislav Shopov. After 2 races, it is clear that Vladislav Shopov is one of the best sim racers in the world. We've seen him do it at the lowest level of iRacing category car, and he will be looking to improve and prove and prove the more that he goes. A purple first sector out there as well, just to give the emphasis out there at the end of this qualifying session, which officially will now see the checkered flag as Barney will wave, and we will see Vladislav Shopov's time in. Over to the line. And a 142.772, so did not improve ultimately over his flying lap, and as such remains with that 142.712, which is the pole position time here at Watkins Glen. About 0.4 of a second, the margin then as they go through qualifying. But qualifying doesn't guarantee you a race victory. You can just ask Vladdy about that last time out. It does give you, though, the best possible chance to go out there and make things happen. Qualifying will officially be wrapped up in the books in 1 minute and 35 seconds time as we go through. This, of course, is how things look for this circuit. The boot layout that we run here at Watkins Glen, which is running about today with not much wind to deal with, but a lot to try and navigate through in terms of the cold track temperatures that they are having to deal with here. Overcast is the scheduled run for the format that we have here today, knowing that it is only going to get warmer as this race goes on, and ultimately, depending on what time they start, it's mostly cloudy conditions by about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if this does remain a morning style race that we've got out there, as we just ticked over 10 o'clock in sim time, it's probably going to remain overcast with no threat of rain on the horizon. Just a muggy and bleak day in upstate New York for this second round of the championship. They will also be eyeing up the third round of the championship of the SimGear GT Masters here in 2025. And when they're looking at that and that third round, it will be a little bit more different. I think it's the first time that we'll be moving away from the United States of America and heading ourselves over then to that third round overall, which I believe is Portimao for that next effort that we have going forward. So that will certainly prove to be a traditional GT-style circuit out there for many a driver and team who hopes to try and put their best foot forward. And yes, the Autodromo de Algarve, then Portimao, will be that third round of the championship. Mugello at round 4, and then as you move on down the calendar, Circuit of the Americas at round 5, Road Atlanta at round 6, and round 7, the Circuit de la Sarthe when it comes to Le Mans. But there is your grid as it stacks up. Vladislav Shopov on the pole position, a 142.712. We'll have Venceslav Raichinov along with him as we get the green flag to go. It will then be Nicholas Stanev and Miroslav Sotorov then third and fourth, with Chris Vrajilov fifth and Christian Novev in 6th position. Your top 7 all come from negative delta in one way, shape or form. So Zdravko Ivanov will line up 7th with Boyko Shopov in 8th, and GT3 Pro and AM will mingle together. So Maxim Dimitrov He'll go in the Porco Rosso style car in 9th place, with the top 10 rounded out by Bozidar and Dreyev. 11th will go to Panayot Karpachev, and then Yulian Janovsky will have a little bit of work to do from 12th position to join some of the pros. It's then the Belgians who are 13th and 14th, with Roy Vervaeke and Joris Ooms. Ivo Serafimov, your GT3 AM championship leader, goes from 15th, with Lazar Katsarski in 16th position. It's then Milan Milchev and Vladimir Mavrodiev, 17th and 18th, with Ivilo Dimitrov and Lyubomir Velkov in 20th position. Following that is Stanimir Borisov and Dimitar Dimitrov then in 22nd, before we reach GT4, where Martin Yankov found himself the fastest time, 3/10 clear of Rostislav Kochev in 24th position. Then it's a first start for Alex Stefanov, along with Alexander Nikolov Jr. Senior, I don't think, is here today to race, with Nikolai Mikov and Orlin Malinov then on the 14th row of the grid. Roban Skelton leads then Valentin Stamenkov, and I will correct myself because the likes of Alexander Nikolov is actually going to have to go from the back of the field here today with Dimitar Palauzov. So the pair of them are going to be at the back and trying to charge through, along with Alex Zhakov, who will be lined up in 32nd position. So just the way that it's gone and the way that they grid, they're not gridded down to the back of the GT respective fields. So GT3s aren't gridded at the back of the GT3 fields. So that will mean that it's going to be a very awkward start, but I think they will just get the clearance to go on through. So Shakov will immediately try and chase back up to where he needs to be to join the back of his category. Alexander Nikolov, I think, has more likely stayed in his lane, and so there might actually be a penalty for that in the way that it goes. I don't know how the iracing system's going to play, but if it does mean that as you go by you try and jump back up to your category of class, which Alex Zhakov certainly has done, that might just warrant him a penalty for not following the orders of this field, which would be a big shame if that were to happen, but something that does keep itself with a lot of notice as they go through. The fields also spreading themselves out by category, so GT3 and GT4 giving each other plenty of space out there for this start of the race, and making sure that they give themselves as much room so that if there are any incidents that happen in GT3, that they clear themselves out before GT4 gets there. And there is your BMW iRacing safety car, which is out there on circuit, the brand new one then for iRacing, which will be looking to make its appearance known and will be leading this field around for the full pace lap, which we're already almost half of the way through before 1 hour will tick up on the clock. Keep an eye out, though, on drivers around. Christian Novev down in 6th here to qualify, your championship leader, but the likes of Miroslav Stotarov and Nicholas Stanev will certainly look to try and prove that they've got pace, and Zdravko Ivanov really took advantage over the race at Sebring of keeping himself out of trouble as everyone else around him tended to find and make mistakes. So the question will be asked if that will be the similar sort of scenario that Zdravko Ivanov sits down and looks at. But Vladislav Shopov is the driver who's got complete control of the front of the field. And keep an eye out on the wildcards in GT4, because Alex Stefanov, who doesn't have a round 1 score, didn't turn up at round 1, will look around and see Rosti Kochev, the likes of Martin Yankov, and ask the question, at a very highly dependent drafting circuit, how difficult is it going to be for certain drivers to break away? But as we head ourselves towards turns numbers 11 and 12, even on circuit as it's counted here in iRacing, this is where the start is going to line itself up. Now, the start zone is once again beyond the bridge as they look to get themselves ready. And that start zone under the Go Bowling Bridge, it will be under the control of one Vladislav Shopov. Pace car is in. They wait for the green flag. The green flag has gone, and Shopov gets himself up to speed. But the entire group, as close as you like, as GT3s make their charge to the 90. The sun comes out, the drama starts. It's bowling at turn number 1. About 5 or 6 there. Paniot Karpachev caught up in it. Still more spins they go through. Maxim Dimitrov was caught out. Lazar Katsarski, I think, was in there too, as now in comes your GT4s to now get their launch hopefully a little bit easier. There was a car on the grass, I think, of Yulian Janovsky off of the start, who I think might have been the catalyst as he came screaming across the circuit to try and take an angle into the first corner, and I think he just completely blindsided 3 or 4 cars out there. But a clean start in GT4s nevertheless. But it's at the front, a change now as Stanev now starts to find troubles, and we got black flags out there for Alexander Nikolov, Roy Viveka, and Alex Shakov off of the start, so they're not going to get cleared. There's a look at Yulian Janovsky catching the likes of Karpachev, not once but twice, as he came across. Dimitrov with nowhere to go. A complete carving of the middle of the GT3s on the opening lap, but 3 black flags off of the start of this race. Alexander Nikolov and Alex Shakov both have those black flags, so the 2 seniors have those. And then Roy Viveka picked up a black flag off of the start, so they will have to come down in and serve those penalties, and also have to come in for their scheduled pit stop over this race. But Shopov, your leader, followed by Raichinov, Stanev 3rd, Vrajilov in 4th, Miroslav Sotorov finds himself 5th, then Zdravko Ivanov in 6th, Christian Novlev 7th, and Boyko Shopov in 8th. And believe it or not, leading AM, who took advantage of all of that, was Ivo Serafimov. In comes Alexander Nikolov then, senior, to make his pit stop, and that will be to serve the iracing black flag penalty. No other ways around it. We've got 2 dramas actually in GT4, because Roban Skelton is crabbing along the circuit with damage out there right now. He's got the black and orange mechanical flag, along with Valentin Stemenkov, who's also got that and is down in the pits and out. So just like that, dramas befalling both categories as they go through, and this will massively shake up the field. Into the pits is Maxim Dimitrov. I would suggest this is to serve damage that he's got out there at this moment in time, and there are no fast repairs in this series. If you break the car, you got to manually repair it to get yourself back into position once again. So a huge cleaving of this field, but watch out for GT4s, because now here comes the look up over the top of the hill. Martin Yankov losing out that race lead as Alex Stefanov now moves himself to the point and leads this one. I wonder if at any point we might be able to catch a replay of what happened to the likes then of Roban Skelton and Valentin Stemenkov in GT4. If we can't, it's a shame, but at the moment we've got so many drivers out of this race, including Karpachev, who is down and officially confirmed as the first retiree. But ultimately, Alexander Nikolov down in the pits, Lazar Katsarski a little bit further back then, and a lot of work to do, as now it is time for the BWT car to go through. So this was Karpachev with his damage, so this put him out of the race. But it's GT4s now that becomes a very interesting port of call, as they came through and kept themselves out of trouble. But Roban Skelton, I think, was the one who found himself pointing the wrong way at the wrong time. This was Lazar Katsarski then here on replay, who found himself, just into the side, as he thought he cleared all of it there, but he got into there by Bozidar Andreev, who was just there going through, and that's what's put him in slow motion into the barriers there. But there is Alex Stefanov, who leads your category. But watch out at the front. Vladislav Shopov is not having everything as hunky-dory as he did at Sebring. It is, of course, Ventislav Raichinov who sits himself in play, and Joris Ohms now looking to get aggressive here as he tries to run back through the field and gain as many places as he can. That was a pass then for position on Lyubimir Velkov that he's managed to get by, and now he's eyeing up Dimitar Dimitrov, Alex Shakov, who he's going through with, and the slightly wider line taken by Milan Milchev there in the off-track racing BMW. So there's a little slow car of Stanimir Borisov as they go into the toe of the boot, and Borisov just about leaving a pinch then as they look to charge up the hill and over towards the heel. Now you can make moves here. There goes the switch over to the inside on Stanimir Borisov and Milan Milchev. You'll see that yellow there go straight on by. Thank you very much. Now it's Porsche v Porsche as Dimitar Dimitrov now looks on the back and tries to find a way through. The Castrol colours of Alex Shakov trying to bring himself into play, and Joris Ooms and Lyubomir Velkov still there on the back of this one. And now Martin Yankov dropping again another place. Stanimir Borisov, by the way, has just hit the barriers, but Yankov's going to lose another place out there. Uncharacteristic right now for Martin Yankov, who is dropping and dropping and dropping and will not be best pleased at the fact he is stuck on the outside. Rosti Koshev then holding his station firm and saying that one is mine and you're not going to do anything about that. So that puts Koshev to second in category, and now with Borisov, Shakov and Roy Viveka down in the pit. Now here comes Joris Ooms looking for position. This one on Dimitar Dimitrov. This would be for 14th place. And now moving on towards that chicane, having to lift a little bit then through this section, not really worrying too much. Wide goes Dimitrov carrying too much speed, and Joris Ooms, who got all of the turn in and then some, goes and gets the move sorted. So wonderfully done then in terms of that pass, and putting that into a perfect position then with this race as they all look to continue on. So some great work being done as we take a look here. So this was Valentin Stemenkov. So he was crabbing along the circuit. So obviously this has happened before there. So we've just caught the back end of what's happened to Stemenkov there with the Castrol coloured McLaren GT4 they had there. So maybe we do need to try and rewind that back even further to try and catch out what has happened there. But speaking of what is happening, the gap 9/10 of a second here for Ventislav Rachinov to chase down. This is now 3rd, 4th and 5th that we got our eyes peeled and focused on. So this here is going to be Chris Vrajilov, who holds himself on the podium in the Porsche. It's then Stanev is the first of the McLarens here today, and then it will be Miroslav Sotorov, who is hoping to try and make that charge up and gain that place. So that's where the next battleground is. Novev at 1.2 back is only catching the very fringes of Slipstream in P6, and knowing that he's got a lot of work to do, and you don't have the full length of this straight because of the bus stop here around Watkins Glen, there's still a lot of challenge that will be found going through. Vrajilov unfazed through the carousel, and now down the hill over towards the chute, which can also classify itself as a carousel. They don't use hairpin too much in the United States when they talk about corners, which are hairpin-like in their trajectory. Any corner that has more than 90 degrees worth of turn out there on track is classified as a carousel, as there goes Alexander Nikolov there in the number 58 car, now looking to try and run through the GT4s a little bit further back in class. But there is Martin Yankov, who is sat in 3rd position and doesn't necessarily have to worry too much about there, as we just saw exiting the pits, Maxim Dimitrov. He's down 2 laps now in this race, and he will have a very long meeting to try and get through on this hour. So a lot being done in the early stages at just 8 minutes into the hour. So Dimitrov will have a lot of hoping that there are going to be dramas befalling a lot of drivers around the very tight nature of this Watkins Glen track, as Yankov trying to pick a pocket down the inside of the carousel off the exit. And of course, as he battles with Rosti Koshev, he will look to that outside, but it's not quite there at the chute. It's one of those decisive corners with the late apex entry as you go into it. So Koshev holding on to that second. They're going to have to be a little bit coy in the way that they play this here, because on the back is Alexander Nikolov Jr., who sits knowing that Senior's trying to make his progress through the field by them in the next few stages too. But ultimately, that's a move then that doesn't quite manifest, but Martin Yankov can certainly go and find that as and when he chooses. Gap in GT AM is the biggest at the moment. That is currently sat at about 5 seconds here between the likes, of course, of Ivo Serafimov and I believe that will be Ivilo Dimitrov there in second position. The chase still on for Bozidar Andreev, who finds himself then into P number 3. But here with Chris Razulov in third position, he looks, that's Nicholas Stanev, who's trying to get by and jump on through for position. Stanev not necessarily waiting back here with Chris Vrajolov for this position, but rushing about then over through turn number 9 and heading on towards turns 10, 11 and 12. Out on track, it is again a look back to the S's section. Lap traffic will soon become a factor here in this one for GT4s as Rushdie Koshev looks back. There is Martin Yankov, who moves over to the left-hand side. It was covered perfectly, middle of the road, entering the apex there for the Mercedes, compared to the BMW, compared to the McLaren of Alexander Nikolov, which sits there and waits. And now father's going to overtake with his faster car, son just behind him, and this will be for position on the road. But Alexander Nikolov Sr. has got to be very, very choice on how he gets through, because he could easily get himself caught up in a battle he doesn't want anything to do with then in his Ferrari 296. So as they go, Yankov trying to go around the outside of the toe and maybe even trying to pick a pocket here off the exit, trying to cut his losses by attacking off the exit. He gets there, they let the traffic through, and now this is time to use it as a pick. Martin Yankov moving over to the outside, side by side they go, wing mirror to wing mirror, power off the exit will favour Yankov for position here. And how much of a pinch is there? Yankov commands the road in towards turn number 9, and that is wonderfully done. Rusty Koshev can't do much about that. They've allowed that gap to massively extend. Move done. Sotorov, though, having a really big scrap of his own at the moment in towards the heel of the boot as he watches out behind, because that is Christian Novev, who's done well to rejoin that pack and now moves himself up into P number 5. So Christian Novev trying to just whittle through the points and the gaps, and you'll see a lot of grass kick up then as they head themselves out of the turn 9 corner and in towards turn 10 out on track, and 11, which ends the lap outright. So we will be keeping an eye out on those as we reach the end of these laps. But 2.4 now, your race leading gap, but Martin Yankov by no stretch of the imagination out of the woods, because up over the top of the hill once again comes Rusty Koshev, and he's got the help from of course Nikolov Jr., who's there, and Jr. sits into line and the pass made, but that's too deep there, and that's going to be a slowdown penalty that he's going to have to serve very quickly here. Is Rostislav Koshev. He's got to try and keep the pace, but of course he's only got about 40 seconds to serve it before that slowdown penalty turns into a black flag for cutting the course. So still through the corner, finally gets that served, and crucially didn't see Alexander Nikolov go through. What he has done though is he's allowed Orlin Malinov to join the fray in the 105. So now suddenly the Aston Martin Vantage, the only one in the field, brings itself into viewing and says, you know what, I'd quite like to race for this podium as well, and that is going to be key. And Ivilo Dimitrov, by the way, has dropped a few places over the last couple of laps. So Dimitrov, who'd kept himself out of trouble, now finds himself behind the likes of Milen Milchev for position. So that puts Milchev onto the podium, and Stanev getting aggressive right now, running through at the heel of the boot and back up the hill here to the quarter-hour stage of the race. It is Stanev who holds himself firm and in station. Miroslav Sotorov looking in the mirror. He's trying to get as wide as possible. He knows he's not going to make the move down there at turn number 10. He knows that he can't make that pass, but what he can do is be patient, but there's no patience in front from Nikolov Jr., who dives down to the inside and says, you know what, that one might be mine. But the exit there from Koshev, who keeps his foot firmly planted down, says, no, you're going to have to work a little bit harder to get that pass on me. Confirms he gets the place back at turn 3, but as they come up towards the bus stop, once again, on what will be their 8th time in this race, they're going to have to be very choice about how they battle this, because Vladi Shopov wants a way through, and Shopov's going to have to lift off the throttle as he goes through the bus stop, not getting any help from his negative Delta teammate there in Nikolov Jr. Here comes the search around the outside. He gets the clearance that he wants, just about, but it will now bring in the likes once again of Raichanov, who will also have to try and navigate a way through this. Traffic gives and traffic takes away when it comes to this. You can see Malinov having to let that go, and behind that there is the Castrol Porsche of Alex Shakov, who is a little ways off. Of course, he's a lap down in 26th position. He's going to try and get through these drivers for position, even though Shakov currently here on our timing tower is marked as a GT4. He is a GT3, ladies and gentlemen, so he'll definitely be trying to navigate his way through and keep himself out of any troubles out there in this race. So keep an eye on Shakov as he tries to navigate by all of these drivers. But Nikolov continuing to keep himself steady. They're allowing now, with the way that the traffic has gone through, Yankov through, and now look at this. It's a whole slew of quick cars then through. Vrajilov gets the clearance that he wants. Stanev trying to follow as Christian Novev has gained another one. That puts him up now into P4, and he is slicing and dicing his way through the field. We've got pit stops as well to deal with right now, and let's just listen in here to the lapping process. Well, that's not good. That's a car turned around, and that'll be Miroslav Sotorov, who goes into the opening corner, just trying to take too much out of it there. Grabs the grass on the right-hand side, and ultimately the car never settled as it goes through the corner, and he's very lucky he's not collected the likes there of, I believe, Boyko Shopov there in the Lamborghini Huracan. There was one of the cars that he had to try and avoid in that scenario, so did just enough to keep that out of any further dramas. There is Ivaylo Dimitrov, who now looks at Joris Ooms, who has gone through then in GT3 AM for position. Still trying to search back through the S's, but I think Joris has just got the legs there in through the chicane and has done. And so, as such, we'll move now into 4th in class with that pass and say, job well done out there at this stage. So I would say that's wonderfully constructed the way that move's done, but I would also keep my eyes out on Yulian Janovsky trying to get by a couple drivers out there like Andreev for position. That would be for 10th currently out there after his massive issues then of pointing backwards at the opening corners of this race. Janovsky's Acura there we keep our focus with at this stage. Heavily damaged, by the way, it is on the front. They've got a little bit of GT4 traffic there. That's Nikolai Mikov in the D-Bros Automotive Revo Porsche that they've gone by. And then Andreev himself does have the front left showing at the moment on the front. You can see they're scraping. That's going to be definitely costing in terms of fuel mileage out there, and he might have to take slightly more fuel at that stop because he won't be getting the same numbers. But here comes the drive by Julian, straight down the inside into turn 1 and throws it through the 90. It's on camber down there, so you really do get that slingshot feel coming out to the 90 and then up the hill. It's a fantastic way to start the lap. Novev eyeing up a podium now. Oh, trying to search down the inside off the exit of the bus stop. Sometimes you can catch drivers like Chris Vrajilov napping a little bit when it comes to those moves, but Novev still not quite there. It's Porsche's 1, 2, 3, McLaren's 4, 5, 6 as negative delta hold a lot. Oh, position! And there goes around. I think that might be Roy Viveka there. Sorry, no, it won't be Viveka. That'll be someone else who's found the barriers then, and heftily so as well. And that would have been disastrous there. That was Ivo Serafimov, believe it or not, your leader in GT3 AM, just tangling. Wrong place, wrong time there with the likes of Alexander Nikolov Jr. And that will now bring Sotorov then back again into 8th position. And that gap all of a sudden for Serafimov has been cut in half in GT3 AM. So that is going to be a big sigh of relief that his race is still going. But there is Orlin Malinov, still trying to keep himself in range with these drivers through, and Alex Stefanov, who leads the field outright in GT4, will be very happy with his margin right now of about 4 seconds. Big wide line taken, that will allow 2 cars through as Alexander Nikolov sees Julian Janowski go by, and everyone trying to keep themselves out of trouble. There is Roy Vervaeke, by the way, who sits himself in the Mark Speed car in 18th position after having to take that penalty for a black flag, a start infringement for Roy, which might have been overtaking before the drop of the green flag, which would have been very unfortunate if that were the case for him. But Roy still looking to try and charge up through. Here is the Belgian looking at Vladimir Mavrodiev for that place. So now this is Christian Novev. Then getting past the number 5 car of Chris Vrajilov, then getting that done comfortably on the straight without too many dramas, heading into into the bus stop even to get it done. Janowski again with the damage either side of Martin Yankov then as they go, and that is going to be Acura versus Acura. Ivan Serafimov will not feel comfortable about the fact that he's going to have to try and battle it out there with Julian, who is, of course, in the GT3 Pro category and not the AM category. So that will certainly be a very telling cause for concern there. So Serafimov in the AIJRS car will certainly be keeping his eyes and ears on a swivel for what Julian will try and find in terms of movement. This on for 9th position overall, but there is still emphasis for someone like Serafimov to fight off Janowski, and that's the fact that Ivo Serafimov would still score points more than what we see from the likes of Andreev. So that extra position is going to be a couple more points in the back pocket. The bonnet now slightly damaged here for Ivo Serafimov as Julian Janowski makes his way past Alex Stefanov, who leads your field overall in GT4, and quite honestly has kept it out of trouble and done exactly what he's needed to do in that category. 3.5 seconds now, your gap at the front for Vladislav Shopov, who leads this race. But Janowski giving chase up the hill and hoping that he's got the legs over maybe a slightly wounded car of Ivo Serafimov. He moves to the inside as they head to the bus stop. He's later on the brakes as he dives on in. Can he get the car slowed up? Answers yes. Serafimov might be struggling here now with a little bit of damage, because here comes Bozidar Andreev, who catches a massive wake of dirty air going through the carousel. So easy to do, and that is the place that stays as it is. There's Velkov into the corner. Oh, just enough room for them both. Lyubimir will have to give that one up as he tried to make the pass on Dimitar Dimitrov. So Dimitrov doing just enough to hold himself then to 15th place. But you got Velkov in 16th, and behind him, Stanimir Borisov, who is P17, trying to chase that one on down. Mavrodiev also in a scrap right now, still with Roy Vervaeke. Roy hasn't necessarily been able to find the right angle to make the attack at the moment, and I think it's been rather telling that the McLaren 720 of Vladimir Mavrodiev has got the legs on the Mark Speed Porsche, currently piloted by Roy Vervaeke. It's the GT, it's a fantastic car actually, that Porsche, the of course 911 GT3 R992 out there. It has certainly proven its weight in gold, especially when you look at the front of the field here today. 3 of the top 4 that find themselves out there at the moment. So there is your field, and do my eyes deceive me then in terms of where they go? Because Alex Stefanov here, I think we just had an update here, has been moved to GT3 AM at the moment, but I can still confirm he's GT4 at the moment, so he should have the lead of GT4 as it currently stands, and still does. So it will be Alex Shakov that we got to keep an eye out on, which will be car 65 that is uncharacteristically classified in the wrong class as it currently stands, as he makes the move, which will be 4th position, by the way, on the road in his GT3 Porsche, past the GT4 of Rosti Koshev, for that place. So that movement there. So I think what we'll need to do is we'll need to put Alex Stefanov back into GT4 and move the likes of Alex Shakov, who is now through on Yankov, then into GT3 AM. But Viveka still continuing on to try and pull himself into making that pass, and again still not finding what he needs to manage that. It's a really frustrating process when you are stuck behind a driver and looking for what you can. There's Alex Stefanov back in his group. Now we just need Alex Shakov into play, but now using the traffic as a pick. Oh, Roy, easy as you like, moves around the outside there, and that's all about commitment. As you go through a corner like that, for Vladimir Mavrodiev, he wouldn't have been confident to go 2 wide, even 3 wide, down there at the heel, or sorry, at the toe of the boot. And because of that, it certainly provides a lot more drama out there where these drivers now start to sit. Look at GT3 AM's race lead right now. Serafimov, Andreev, and Milchev all together out there at this moment in time, and hoping that they can all find what they need to here to move on forward and gain the places that they need. I think we are really staring down what is a wonderful bit of racing at the moment there, if we can go to that. Currently focused on Roy Viveka, currently in 17th position, but Milchev and Andreev and Serafimov will look around and say, well, these are our chances here, and it's about holding on for Ivo Serafimov to Yulian Janovsky in that 9th place. Use that as a little bit of a tow rope, so to speak, to get on through around this pack, with the halfway stage almost bringing itself into view. So very soon we might be starting to think about pit stops, and this is a high fuel usage circuit around here, around this track at Watkins Glen. Traditionally is when you come to one of the drafting circuits like this. So strategy might be a little bit more linear. We might see slightly earlier pit stops, maybe at the half hour, 35 minutes, might be only as far as some drivers and some teams are willing to allow. There is Zdravko Ivanov, who looks looks in front of him at Nicholas Stanev. This for a top 5 as Boyko Shopov, almost on cue, dives down into the lane. The first pit stop taken. Looking for an undercut here is Boyko in the number 3 Lamborghini Huracan Evo. So that's a big call to jump down in and say, I'll make it early, but he's got to do something from his lowly position to try and gain and profiteer on drivers around. Stanev still looking around and realizes that it is now Zdravko Ivanov who's found that move through and has gained that place, and that was all done on the exit of the 90 as Stanev ran a little bit wide, held the throttle and just allowed that to go through and that place to be made. Here comes Milan Milchev though, as he eyes up second in category, but Andreev is just braver on the brakes at the bus stop to just turn in with that level of authority on the outside. Milan Milchev will feel like he's seen the great opportunity slip through his fingers, and he just can't do the same thing there as what Bozidar Andreev did. Andreev took it on circuit, the victory last time out, but of course penalties applied for his issues with Maxim Dimitrov. There definitely tempered his run. His championship points ran down, and now he finds himself effectively 3 points off of your championship leader, Ivo Serafimov, as things stand. So that's his challenge, try and get by on Evo, gain that next position, and to move that Porsche up as Milchev gets a little wiggle there in his BMW through the middle of the heel of the boot, as Boyko Shopov now exits the pit and looks to try and charge on with his next phase going forward. There is Boyko Shopov for the Ekov Rally School in 20th position, and now having to run through the order now as he will look at Alexander Nikolov Sr. He is the penultimate, or one of the penultimate cars there, or so I'd say the tertiary to last car, because Alex Zhakov is of course in GT3 AM, and then of course one lap down now is Borisov there. So I think Stanimir Borisov, is having a bit of a moment as I just went to look to him. I think he's come in, made a pit stop, and he's actually just hit the barriers over at turn 9. So that's certainly not helping. Stanev, though, staying close here to Zdravko Ivanov, still trying to find any and every which way, as in comes Lyubimir Velkov to come in and to make his stop. So still definitely trying to find that pass, but at least for the moment, he's looking in front. That's Roban Skelton and Dimitar Palauzov. They're battling out there. 4 laps apart at the moment, those two. So definitely not for position, as there's a little half chance, and almost into the back of Nicholas Stanev goes the likes of Dimitar Palauzov. So that would have been dramatic then, to say the least. We've got our timing and scoring all there. Alex Zhakov now officially GT3 AM, as we see Velkov leaving the pit exit as things go, and we'll be looking around at Alexander Nikolov's Ferrari soon, which will be flying itself through. In fact, just has then for that position. Your race leader, though, at 3.7 seconds to the good, as we now hit the halfway stage of the race, is Vladislav Shopov here. The number 1 car is flying clear, with Ventsislav Rajchanov in second, and Christian Novev is in third position. It's then Chris Razhalov in fourth, and Zdravko Ivanov in P number 5 as things stands, and that is Milan Milchev then, who is looking a little bit ginger, as in has actually come Borislav Andreev. So that would explain why he looks a little bit lonely all of a sudden, because Bozidar Andreev just after the halfway stage makes the call to jump in, and that might send a chain reaction through GT3 AM here. Ivo Serafimov will certainly be keeping an eye on that, and here is Orlin Malinov in GT4. He's got his eyes set on Alexander Nikolov Jr. for 4th place at the moment. They're not a million miles away from Alex Stefanov, from Martin Yankov, from Rostislav Koshev. They're not there too far away. Also into the pits now comes Lazar Katsarsky, who was caught out in the early stages. Dimitar Dimitrov is also in the bright green Porsche out there. Andreev leaving the pits, I think, is going to come out just behind Kotchev then in terms of placing, with the likes of Orlin Malinov and co there through. So he's got a little bit of clean air to work with, but he's still got to deal with a couple of road cars out there. And there is Katsarski there. The front of that McLaren, sorry, doesn't look the best in the world. So in comes Chris Razhalov now to make his stop, and this is going to set the leaders into place. So Chris Razhalov in the Porsche, he was right there with Novev for placement, so he would have been eyeing up, trying to get in, get his stop to work, and then keep himself back in range. So this is going to be a wonderful little moment as far as the racing goes, to say, right, now we've got to try and prove it. Now we've got to try and see it. Now we've got to try and make something happen if a podium's on the horizon. Here's a bit of side-by-side, as there is the Yekov Rally School car trying to dive down the inside, as in comes likes of Janovsky, Serafimov, and Milchev. Joris Ohm stays out there in this race, but move done by Boyko. No surprises there. He had to get through, and get through quickly, as he tried to get that done for position on Lyubimir Velkov. So he got that done, as here is Zdravko Ivanov just behind, battling with Nicholas Stanev. Pit window being very interesting here. Janovsky, will keep an eye out on him and where he comes out, because he's got a lot of ramifications with where he comes out in comparison to some of the others, like Serafimov, for example. He'll come out just ahead, but where by that comparison is Bozidar Andreev. Andreev's just leaving the pits, and I think he might lose out here to Milan Milchev, who's up to speed and ahead of him. So those two will battle for second and third in class. So we watch Yulian Janovsky. Let's go back to Milan Milchev, car 51 out there on track, because there's going to be a move for position here, and this is a critical one in terms of Andreev's race and Milchev's race. If they want to fight for victory overall, they've got to clear this and sort this out quickly, as close as you like. Milchev, though, parks the car in the middle of the apex, and Andreev's Porsche has nowhere to go. So it looks like the Leipzig outfit loses out, and for Bozidar Andreev, he sees Milan Milchev go through. All your leaders, though, are now in the pits and making that stop, so they can't go much further, and GT4 have just exited the pits. Alex Stefanov then has gone through. So Koshev's gone out longer. Yankov still trying to give chase. Vladi Shopov leads the pits. And Lazar Katsarski, by the way, has got a black flag in the pits. So for Katsarski, I'm not quite sure what's happened to him there. I wonder if he's been caught speeding on the lane, but he's got a black flag. It might even be for speeding on pit exit as he exited the pits. And so his day goes from bad to worse. Roy Viveka now bringing himself into a battle. He looks now at Dimitar Dimitrov, trying to get another one after the black flag penalty that he had to serve in the opening laps of this race. Crucially, though, Frashilov unable to make much ground when it comes to Novev. Ivanov and Stanev have stayed together out on tracks, and Raichanov now 5 seconds behind. So very tough day at the office here to try and pull that back. Just as we look here at, again, Andreev trying to make that move. Viveka has now got the pass done on Dimitar Dimitrov, so that will put him up a position and put him to 14th overall, as in comes Orlin Malinov to make a stop. Katsarski now leads the pit, so too does Alex Shakov out there, but at least right now, here is Andreev searching, and there is Dimitar Dimitrov, who has lost that place now to Roy Viveka, and that was done through the heel of the boot and over towards the toe, turn 9, to make that pass. So very much a case of those moves being made and wonderfully done, but now you look around at who's going to try and make the next pass. The answer is Boyko Shopov, who has really lost out, actually, as far as the pit stop window goes. For him to be down in 16th place, he must have had a really long stop to try and repair a little bit of damage on the car or something of that ilk, or maybe he's over-fueled it in terms of his pit stop. So that could really put him down. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong moment. Oh, and all over the curb. Coming off for the exit. Just caught my attention late there as he went on through. Just couldn't get the car to rotate through the middle of the corner. You are carrying so much speed, and you do bounce over the curbs quite a bit when you head through that section of road. And so you've got to be so careful about carrying too much speed, getting no traction down on the tyres, and so it is very easy to find yourself wrong place, wrong time, and that resiliency factor needed. Andreev continuing to keep himself close, continuing to bring himself into position, and looking around at Ivo Serafimov. They've lost 5 seconds to him now. Lights now starting to flash, so every single bit of distraction tactic from Bozidar Andreev comes into full fruition, and as he exits the corner, now here comes the look. Milan Milchev will look behind once more, and now it gets busy for P5 because Zdravko Ivanov, having to clear a fair bit of traffic here, has a hectic moment with Nicholas Stanev, who now looks to try and bring himself into play. He now thinks about it. They've got Orlin Malinov there that they could use as a pick for that place, but Ivanov, I think, is just holding his station and doing what he does very well. Koshev, by the way, in the pits, along with Alexander Nikolov, and Nikolai Mikov is also into the pits too. So that will pretty much cleanse the field, so to speak, when it comes to GT4, and it should give Alex Stefanov the lead once again in this field, with Martin Yankov giving chase in GT4. So just keep an eye out on this on the exit of the pits to see how close it goes. Kotchev is now rolling, but I think he's going to lose out here in terms of time. So there goes through your race leader now, Alex Stefanov, who retakes GT4. Martin Yankov glides on through into second, and it puts Rosti Koshev then back in third position in class. Alexander Nikolov will be fourth ahead of Orlin Malinov, but there is your race leader right now, Alex Stefanov, who of course doesn't have one round compared to other drivers, so he walks in with a 27-point deficit here today to try and claw on back, and it's only about a point between the categories. So this is a true consistency value. If you finish second for the majority of these races, a driver like Martin Yankov, one race disadvantage, not impossible to chase down, no matter how good you are out there on track. Joris Ooms now on the back here of this group in GT AM. This is now second, third, and fourth. They've got 20 seconds to Ivilo Dimitrov, so that's going to be a little bit more different. But Joris Ooms, who's been very quiet in this race, now starts to bring himself to life and thinks, as the two Porsches watch on here with the BMW of Milan Milchev, there isn't really much that you can shake a stick at to say that you can make those moves. 7 places gained today by Milan Milchev. Andreev -1, +2 for Joris Ooms as he now takes the big wide line through the shoot corner, and which is known sometimes in sim racing as the Alexius Yakula corner, back from the iracing World Championship Grand Prix Series, and now over in towards the right of the toe of the boot. Joris Ooms keeping himself then as close as he can. That gap opening up a little bit more at this moment in time. Bozidar Andreev now giving himself the angle and enough drive to keep Joris Ooms at bay, but Milan Milchev also keeping things stationary, at least for this time being. Now, it is worth talking about who works for who in terms of the negative delta team at this moment in time, in terms of where they stand. So the KK squad, who have the championship lead, is Krish Vajlov and Christian Novev. They are third and fourth as things currently stand for the teams. You then look around, it is, of course, then Vladislav Shopov, who is your race leader. He's with simgear.bg, and they are 1-2 at the moment. So they look like they're going to take the team's championship lead here between them, Shopov and Raichinov, because they have been absolutely sensational here today. The Madness squad is, of course, Miroslav Sotorov, who is down in P7, and he is joined about, of course, in the Madness squad by Yulian Janovsky, who's a little bit down as well in P8, which leaves, of course, negative delta Arcane, which is Ivanov and Stanev, who are battling together, P5 and 6 currently on the road. But Andreev now, door left a little bit open, off of the exit of the corner. Here comes Ooms going to the outside, trying to get the pass done. Very difficult to go around the outside of the chute, and as such, it is stay where you are. And the more that they battle, the more that they fall into trouble. Lights flashing then frantically by Milan Milchev. He's got to clear Robin Skelton as quickly as he can, and he does so. He manages to get that clearance, and an all-important clearance as well. Andreev gets himself through, and they are very even on the brakes, actually, GT3 and 4. It's just the amount of downforce that you have as you go through, and the power in the engines. You're down by about 150 horsepower or so between categories GT3 and 4. GT4 very much a learning category for how you deal with GT class racing. GT3 is your bread and butter, and everyone loves it. And Joris Ooms, wrong side of the traffic there as he was trying to get by Nikolai Mikov. So that means that Bozidar Andreev gets a reprieve as they go on the straight. Standing, by the way, at 0.4 of a second. Now the gap, but it's also on for your overall race lead in GT4 as we watch Martin Yankov look to try and go back-to-back with victories at both Sebring and at Watkins Glen, and he's going to have to do it the hard way inside the final 20 minutes. He'll have to find a pass on track if he wants to get by Alex Stefanov for that position. So now as he sits and has himself 18 minutes to contemplate where he wants to go and make that move, how he wants to construct it, when is the right time for him to strike and make that pass. He will also look behind and say he is not afforded much luxury, because Rosti Koshev has kept this group honest too, and now it's a 3-car battle for your podium in GT4. This one may come down to the final lap of this race, and it depends on how the lap traffic decides to go through as we watch Miroslav Sotorov clear the group then in 7th position, a full 16 seconds off the pace of the nearest driver in P number 6 currently in this race. So Stefanov looking behind at Yankov, looking behind at Rosti Koshev, who puts himself in P number 3 and trying with all his might to close down the gap and to move into second or maybe first, to be the nearest challenger when it comes to the racing against Martin Yankov, trying to keep himself out of trouble, trying to keep his racing clean, knowing as well that he found himself down classified as third in the championship and 4 points adrift. Nikolai Mikov, second in the championship coming into today, not having as much luck as he did at Sebring. But here comes the charge once more from Martin Yankov, trying to get that slipstream to work. Very difficult with the high profile that the BMW has to be effective to slipstream against that lower and sleeker car out there of the McLaren, which is piloted by Stefanov. 3 different manufacturers in your top 3 of GT4, as we got Borisov down in on the lane as things stands, and Ohms trying to go for a move as well for position. I've just caught that out the corner of my eye too. So everywhere you go there's a battle, and he just can't find the angle, and they are now starting to battle amongst themselves here, is this group. They know it's 4.5 seconds from Milan Milchev over to that next section of drivers, which is going to be Ivo Serafimov, which they need to catch, and the lap traffic there of Alexander Nikolov Jr. didn't really help. Ohms was trying to get any form of angle on the outside to have overlap into the corner to try and apply as much pressure as he could, but again couldn't quite get the clearance. They now move past Orlin Malinov, and it stays as it is for the moment. No real dramas to speak of then between these lots as it goes. They've been nice and calm with the way they've had to navigate through this race, and outside of lap 1, turn 1, this has been a very clean and hard-fought race that we have seen out there on circuit. Yankov continuing to get himself close, but Yulian Janovsky is going to want to try and get himself through, and he will do on the straight, but Ivo Serafimov is also going to go there. Now, clever stuff here by Rosti Kosev as he tries to get the slipstream from the car in front. It does cause dramas into the corner, and round goes Yankov, who gets turned as he goes through by Ivo Serafimov. So 2 category leaders come together at the same time, and Serafimov has turned Yankov. That was all set up by Rosti Kosev being in the middle of the road, forcing a late move to the inside by Serafimov, who did not see Yankov coming, and I wonder if there was a bit of net code as they came into the corner as well. Diving down in there, having to make that move, but for Martin Yankov, oh, he'll feel sick after seeing that. There was always going to be contact between them, and for Yankov there with his hit, he's in the pit, and effectively he's out after that hefty piece of contact. So Martin Yankov, what a day to get 0 on the board, or minimal points, as he finds himself in play there. So massive seismic shift when it comes to GT4, and Rosti Kosev, I think, has just been given a huge free kick in terms of his championship efforts here at just round 2. Alexander Nikolov out now, and a spin for Robin Skelton as he goes through. So Alexander Nikolov Jr. out of the race, so he's been caught up in something too out there, and that's Skelton with damage as he has the rear absolutely melded, and that would be what I've just worked out why actually there both Nikolov and Yankov are in the pits, because as Yankov tried to put the power down on to get back on circuit, Alexander Nikolov Jr. has just completely crashed into him off the circuit. So Yankov has doubly reasons to be hard done by. But as moves go, Boyko Shopov will go back a little bit further up. He's desperate for points here, and he's got to try and run through each and every car he sees, because he's through now on Roy Viveka, and he'll be looking at Alex Shakov and Ivilo Dimitrov as his next car that he's got to try and get by. So Ivilo's the next one to maybe have concerns about, to have worries about at this moment. 4 seconds your lead for Ivo Serafimov in GT3 AM. After the contact, there might be penalties, which will be thrown in post-race. Vladi Shopov at 7 seconds to the good. And Alex Stefanov will only have 0.6 of a second's worth of margin, as Rosti Kosev will now look to try and gain maximum advantage on what has happened in this race in the final 20 minutes here. We are down to 12 1/4 left in this one. Rosti Kosev still giving his chase at half a second. They've got 10 seconds almost now to Orlin Malinov in the Aston Martin, but for the moment it is going to be McLaren leads Mercedes, leads the Aston Martin, leads leads the Porsche, leads the BMW. 5 manufacturers, all 5 manufacturers, 1 through 5 in GT4 at this moment. And now Koshev just won't be able to do anything immediately, I wouldn't feel, on Alex Stefanov, but at this point, it's just showing you're there. You're not looking to win this race now with 12 minutes to go. You're looking to win it with 5 to go, with 3 to go. That's when you want to make the move, when there is no time for a driver of Alex Stefanov's caliber to go and respond back for any pass. Shopov, Boyko Shopov that is, has found the back of Ivailo Dimitrov, and now over towards turn 9. Surely this is a lunge down the inside. He was just cut away at the wrong time because Joris Ohms is going for a move. Ivailo Dimitrov has just lost that place to Boyko Shopov, and he's done very well to do it. But now for what is going to be third in GT3 AM, as Yankov leads the pits and tries to salvage any points he can out of this race. Down the field now into 6th position in class. Here comes Joris Ohms again, but he has found his kryptonite out there in this race. I don't think there's been anything that Bozidar Andreev has done which has said that Joris Ohms can get through on the brakes. Porsche versus Porsche, so it's setup versus setup, driver versus driver. There's nothing really there for Joris Ohms. He looks and looks and looks, and he stays close within 2/10, and he eyes to the inside at the chute, but again, he's never really close enough to go have that almighty, here we go, I'll lunge down the inside and I'll take that move. So he ends up stuck in this very difficult barrier of about 3 to 4 tenths of a second, which is the hardest threshold to cross out there without a mistake from Bozidar Andreev, which we've seen next to none of out there in this race. I think it's been very well driven out there by him at the moment as Palauzov now dives into the pits. There is your top 5 scrap out there at the moment between the 2 teammates here of Stanev and Ivanov. And there is Roy Viveka now trying to open up. There's contact, and that's Roy turned around into the barriers there, going through at the toe of the boot. He was desperately trying to find the drive on the exit. The door left half ajar, and the 1 piece of contact and the 2 piece of contact, I think, is Roy just not being patient enough. Turns himself on the rear of Dmitry Ivanov and Ivailo Dimitrov, sorry, and that is enough there. You can see there's the secondary piece of contact. There's the barriers. Fortunately enough, it's at low speeds for Roy Viveka in the Mark Speed racing car by comparison to other areas of the circuit. So he's able to keep it going without the black and orange mechanical flag, which would indicate he'd have to come down into the pits and serve his damage repairs. But Joris Ohms still continuing to remain close out there, still hoping that there's going to be a move as we now tick to 8 minutes to go. We haven't really talked anything about the front of this field because it's been quiet at the front of this field. 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, your top 5 all split themselves apart by, and that shows you just what the pace difference making is over the course of an hour between those drivers. Ohms continuing to keep himself close as Andreev just runs a little bit wide through the middle of the corner. Now out to the exit of the toe of the boot. They run along the sole, and this might be where Ohms goes for it, but we look at Rosti Koshev. Now he's got an angle, but nothing there still by Joris Ohms to make that pass. Do look at Koshev, though, because as he tiptoes his way through the toe of the boot and looks to try and keep himself close, he'll still be in this race too. It's almost like we need picture-in-picture at this moment in time for the battles that we've got going on circuit, including what's going on for P5 as well, because we've got 3 fantastic battles out there in this field at the moment for overall victory and the like that all goes through. But we focus with Ohms, who continues to try and find that pass on Bozidar Andreev, but Andreev here at this stage still has the legs and also has that hint of slipstream that comes through from Milen Milchev. Big power lunge through turn 1, and this is all about opening up the line here for one Mr. Joris Ohms, but is he so close that he won't get the benefit of slipstream up the hill that he can't pull that gap, or is it just that the legs are there from Bozdar Andreev? Here comes the move for the race lead of GT4. Rusty Koshev's been waiting, and he commands the inside of the corner. Now Alex Stepanov, oh, they lean on each other. Off of the exit, a slight wiggle from Rusty Koshev. There goes the chance, though, through, and it's confirmed. He gets it done, but up the hill, Alex Stepanov is not going to wait. Stepanov wants this pass. Back with everything he's got, moves back to the outside. Does Koshev have the legs along the back stretch over towards the bus stop, and he will catch his bus just in time as he holds onto that race lead. Patience personified, and Rusty Koshev now has the race lead, but I don't think Alex Stepanov is going to take this one lying down if I were you or me, and I was someone who was looking at this race with a little bit of a stake in the game. I think he wants to try and get himself back into position as quickly as he possibly can to hope that he has got this race all lined up for it. I am also keeping a very watchful eye on the gap in GT3 AM lead, because it has come down from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, and it's now at 2 seconds currently here. Milen Milchev here is bringing back Serafimov, but you can see how much traffic's there with your GT4 drivers, and they have to be very cautious about the way that they let that go. Big look over to the outside. You're going to have to try and go around the outside here, because look at this. This is how desperate Alex Stepanov is out there on track. He's fighting the GT3s just to stay in range, and now the door has to be opened here by Rusty Koshev as they go through. It's that awkward gap, that awkward pace that's there, and now there's 2 cars in between them. They'll all get the clearance on the straight that they desperately need, but now you've got Mavrodiev trying to get by Ivilo Dimitrov, trying to get by Alex Zhakov, who's lapped traffic for them, and that is going to be very tough for them. Big blink there as they go through for Ivilo Dimitrov. Have to be very careful about that. Gap opens up in GT4 once more, but Mavrodiev, remember, is looking at this. This will be for 4th out there overall, and the gap overall is still that 2 seconds for the likes of Milen Milchev, who he's got to try and chase down here. Your overall leader, your championship leader in GT AM, Ivo Serafimov, who is out there. 5 minutes to go in this race. They're doing 1:44s. At the front is Vladislav Shopov, and he's right on the back of these drivers here. There he is, Vladi Shopov. We've seen none of him all day. He's been so good, we haven't put a camera on him. It's the greatest praise you can ever give a driver, to say, you're so good in this race right now. You are so dominant. You are leading by so much. We're not going to show you, because we just know you're leading this race. And that is where he sits at this moment in time, knowing his 7.7 seconds are looking pretty handsome and healthy, provided, knock on wood, that the fuel number's good, unlike last week. So for Vladi Shopov, this will be him getting back into form and mentality out there at this point. So he drives through. Look who's back. Just behind as they go through, Alex Stepanov looking now to the outside. Oh, across the beams, down the inside. Rusty Koshev had nothing for it, and that's a fantastic move, but Koshev just gets a wiggle off of the exit. He was trying to get the drive coming off the exit of the corner, and as such, they have to stay as they are. Alex Stepanov back to the lead of GT4, and now no room at the inn for Ventsislav Raichinov to clear it. He's got to be aware as they go through. Oh, both of them tagged the wall as they came through the final corner. They've got to be very careful about that. And looking at the clock here for Vladi Shopov, here as he went through, another 1:44, and by my maths, it's going to be very close whether we're going to get 1 lap or 2 laps here left in this race. It might be that we only get 2 laps remaining here at this point, but up the hill again, Koshev now is going to have his elbows out trying to find this pass on Alex Stepanov, who leaves half a door open, closes it off completely, down on the inside, door left open, 2 tires in the grass trying to find the move, not there, backs out of it, car spun in front of his teammate Roman Skelton, and somehow they survived. That had disaster written all over it, left, right and centre, and Koshev did just enough to lift out. Alex Stepanov has to be so careful about how late he leaves it, and more traffic tries to go through. This will be the likes of Christian Novev, who's 3rd overall, that tries to go by them and does, and now the drive off the exit. Oh, you can sense the desperation between the pair of them. They both want this win with every fibre of their beings, trying to get these passes done, trying to get the movement sorted, trying to find each and every place to be in their back pocket so they can take points maxima heading out of here and heading over to the Algarve, to Portimao in 1 week's time. They know that this is important, and again it is going to be Koshev staring down the barrel of a move around the outside of 9. Is tough on Alex Stefanov, but at the moment there's not much more that you can do. I've just seen the time. I reckon they're going to be 5 seconds short of having just 1 lap left. I reckon we've got 2 laps left here. Vladi Shopov holds the hands of whether this is a 1 or 2 lap to go battle. So calm your breath, take one deep one if you can, if you're in this battle, because that's going to be big. And what's also going to be big is GT3 AM right now. Ivo Serafimov has only got 1.2 seconds to play with on Mila Milchev, and now they scrap off the exit. Oh, the door left open, and now prizing a way through. Oh, that came out of nothing for Rosti Koshev. He's got his move, but he's not got it confirmed, and that was all done with the lap traffic there, trying to navigate by. That was not the ideal scenario to go and deal with, but as they scrap up the hill, it was Lyubomir Velkov who was slow, and now as they try and find a way through, the traffic navigates by, and Stefanov holds himself back by being more brave at 3 wide into that bus stop, following the tracks wonderfully of Chris Vrajilov to try and navigate that one. Absolutely magnificent. And back down the hill again at the chute. They continue on their charge, and there goes the spin there for Lyubomir Velkov in front of the field. Remember, Stanov and Ivanov are there behind, still fighting for that top 5. They're going to want in, and Serafimov here at 0.7 of a second to Janovsky, to Milchev at 1.4, to Andreev at 0.8, to Urms at 0.4 are still there. Lap traffic goes through again. This time it will be the lime green Porsche that finds a way by. That's Dimitar Dimitrov that goes through. And is that going to leave enough room at the inn? Vladi Shopov now takes the final lap of this race and starts it. Damage heavy there for Dimitar Dimitrov. Not much you can do about that. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But GT4 is where it's at the moment, and now GT3 AM closes in within a second too. So everywhere you look, there is a battle out there for you, and 5th and 6th moved their way on by and say that is what we need to clear. So Koshev, that gap just agonizingly extending here onto that final lap. I think that's just enough maybe here for Alex Stefanov, who's just going to try and hold as much movement as he can. It's tough here at this moment, but I don't think there's much more that you can do. Top 5 still on offer here between Stanev and Ivanov. Here's Zdravko, has driven a wonderful race to try and put himself in that position, and I think they're just about trying to line it up, but it's not going to be close enough. But Serafimov, I think, is going to be looking around, and he'll feel a bit sheepish on this final lap, knowing how close everyone is behind, so that would be great. But at least for the moment, that's a battle that we've got to keep our eyes focused on as they go. Urms continuing to be close, continuing to find that look, and he might send it to 90 with Milchev there as well. Are they going to fight amongst themselves, or are they thinking of victory? 2 corners to go, though, for Vladislav Shopov, who leads this race, and with those 2 corners, turns 10 and 11. He's been at the front as Joris Urms looks to line up that move. Final corner for your race leader, Vladislav Shopov, who will come to the line. We won't see him cross the line as he wins this race at an absolute dominant display. Urms will not get himself anything to work with as he runs by in through these corners, and it's still going to be very close as well when it comes to GT4, and still there's a half chance for Koshev to try and win that category out there. He now looks at it. He's got a great drive coming out of turn 9, and now he'll need 10 and 11 to work in his favour. How brave does he go? Looking for that move, stuck at about a car length back, and now he'll need a dive of all dives to make this happen. Throws the car in, understeering through the corner, contact off the exit. Alex Stefanov holds for GT4. He picks that up over 1 Brilliant drive from Rosny Koshev, and over to GT3 AM. We have to go now because you look at Milan Milchev. He's all over Ivo Serafimov, who's been holding and holding, trying to manage the gap of 5 seconds, and he is desperately clinging on like a rock climber to that final position of P1 in GT3 AM. 1 corner to go as he drives through, and the hold will hold. Serafimov leads a slew behind him. Milchev, Andreev, and Ohms 2, 3, and 4. Wow! If you were just looking at this race at GT3 Pro, you would have called this a quiet race. Everywhere else, anything but. A lot to discuss for Ivo Serafimov and the contact with Martin Yankov. But you look around at this pack, you look around at this race, and there are so many great storylines coming out of this one. Yes, Vladdy Shopov is on top and proving he's got the best pace. We watched Boyko Shopov, the last driver, over to the line. But you look at Serafimov, the contact with Yankov. Yankov now is going to be on the back foot, knowing how good of a drive it was here today from his teammates. And we'll just get that confirmation. There is your race winner, and he won by 10 seconds over the line. Vladislav Shopov at an absolute Sunday drive, if ever you saw one. It's one where he wasn't challenged really at all in this race, and Shopov will say, well, that's just another hour that I tick off the books. And now as I try and regain that championship lead, he looks around at Novev in P3 and says it's pretty much parity once again as it stands. So confirmation, 1 hour, 1 minute, 37 seconds. It is a 10-second win from Vladislav Shopov over his direct teammate, Ventislav Rajchanov, in second. It's then Christian Novev who finds himself in third ahead of Chris Razilov, winning the battle of best Chris out there, with Nicholas Stanev in fifth position and Zdravko Ivanov P6. Miroslav Sotorov would be seventh, with Yulian Janovsky in eighth, causing the massive dramas on lap number 1, with Ivo Serafimov having to desperately cling on to try and win GT3 AM, managing so over Milan Milchev, Bozidar Andreev, and Yoris Ohms. Boyko Shopov would be 13th, with Vladimir Mavrodiev 14th and Roy Viveka 15th. It's then Ivailo Dimitrov, who was up as high as second in GT3 AM here today before fading back with pace trouble, as Dimitar Dimitrov would be 17th and Alexander Nikolov is P18. Then over to 19th and 20th, you got Lyubomir Velkov and Alex Zhakov, with Lazar Katsarski having to come in a second time with a penalty. Worth noting, Roy Viveka also had to come in on the opening lap, so for him to finish 6th was a great achievement out there. Alex Stefanov did not have an easy race to win this one. He had to scrap and claw with Rostislav Koshev over the final stages of that race, and he knew how hard he had to work with the likes of Orlin Malinov and Nikolai Mikov there in third and fourth as they come to the line. It then leaves Maxim Dimitrov, who ended up 4 laps down, and a story of the day, Martin Yankov. He will be ruining the contact he had with Ivo Serafimov going in through the 90, and then furthermore to Alexander Nikolov Jr. That has really dented a lot of confidence for him when it comes to GT4, and he'll be certainly hoping to try and charge further forward on with that. You look around, Dimitar Palauzov, he was able to take through on the final couple of laps to put himself P5 in category, with Stanimir Borisov 4 laps down, and then your retirees, Roban Skelton, Alexander Nikolov Jr., Valentin Stamenkov, and then also Panayot Karpachev. No luck for Panayot. He looked like he had a lot of pace to show today, and his race was done in lap number 1. But we now move from where we are to where we now head to, because we are now into your SimGear press conference here, ladies and gentlemen, where we get the chance to talk to some of our drivers of the SimGear GT Masters and the results and the races that they have had here today. No surprises then for your winners overall. Vladislav Shopov joins me here first and foremost. Vladdy, that is as dominant of a race as we expected to see. How important was it for you to respond after the fuel numbers issue that you had at Sebring?
Well, I decided to drop off the Ferrari strategist, and it worked out. So I'm happy with the win.
Well, it shows because you looked pretty dominant out there at the front. The pace is certainly nothing to shake a stick at. In qualifying, you were 4/10 clear of everyone else in the race. It took you a couple of laps to break the slipstream, but once you broke the slipstream, it was easy for you to settle down into that rhythm. So talk us through the way that you drive, that rhythm that you drive with around a circuit like Watkins Glen, because this is the sort of track that you sit down and go, well, normally it's a drafting circuit.
Well, I don't know about if it's a drafting circuit, but it was more like a tire managing circuit. So I had to pretty much push as much as I can in the beginning to well, break away from the slipstream. Not from Venti, but the guy in P3. I forget if it was Nick or if it was Chris. But yeah, once we're out of the slipstream, I just started pushing on and taking care of the tires. Decided to change the 2 rear tires instead of 2 left tires, which were more worn out. But I think it was a safe choice because I didn't have any oversteer. It was more like understeer, and from then on out, it was just like banging on the lap times one after the other.
You found the lap times that you needed. You were very conscious of the tyre wear factor that was there. That's probably going to feel very similar, actually, in a week from now when we head over to the Autodromo do Algarve in Portimao. So, in terms of navigating those treacherous waters in Portugal, do you look at that race that comes along and think that it's going to be pretty much more of the same, just you're looking to try and evolve the setup from week to week?
I am hoping for rain at the Portimao because I really don't like the track. So it may not be such a dominant performance there, but so that's why I'm hoping for rain.
Well, we'll hope that your rain dance comes into play. Vladislav Shopov there joining us and picking up the victory here today overall at Watkins Glen. We've got his teammate in. It's a 1-2 for the team out there as Venceslav Raichanov is here along as well. Venceslav, that for you as a team performance couldn't have gone much better. P1, P2, you sat now with the team's championship lead and quite comfortably at that as well. Was that the perfect race meeting weekend for your team?
I think yes. I think was the best case scenario that we hope for. I tried to stay with Vladi as long as I can. He helped me at the beginning of race to break the slipstream, so I think it was the best race we can do.
Well, it was one of the best races you could have possibly found out there. You really had a great showcase of driving. But talk us through dealing with the traffic out there, because we didn't really see that many retirements out on the circuit. There was a lot of drama, of course, on lap 1 behind you. But in terms of navigating through the traffic, do you feel like everyone behaved pretty well? Do you feel like that was pretty much as comfortable as...
Yes. I think everybody behaved like expected. No sudden moves. Nobody left the racing line to give space like usually some of the guys do. I think everything perfect with the traffic. No complaints at all.
Your teammate doesn't really like Portimao, but we'll ask the question of whether you do, because it seems like with the extra tyre management, the pace has certainly come up for you in comparison to Sebring. So are you expecting to be up there fighting for that podium or even the win next time out?
I hope. Every time we hope for the best.
Well, you hope for the best, and it certainly worked out that way. Venceslav Raichanov, P2, here today with this one. We will take a chance to look a little bit further down to GT3 AM now, where we have Božidar Andreev here along with us for the ride. Božidar, that is a P3 for you, but it really closed up at the end. Was that just a case of you of running out of time to attack Ivo and Milen?
Unfortunately, no. I have an incident on the opening lap on turn 1, so I have damage on my steering and the car was awful to drive. But I was struggling a lot to put it on the track and to be a little bit fast.
We did see the damage over on the front left of your car, so that definitely had some suspension damage on top of that for you. Just talk us through lap 1, because it looked like from our end that Julian Janowski was over on the left-hand side of the circuit and came roaring across to the middle of the track, and it caught a lot of drivers out, especially in the GT3 AM category. So just talk us through your way of trying to avoid and unfortunately fail to avoid what happened on lap 1.
Well, on the braking on turn 1, I was just hit by another car. I really don't know what was happening. after that, entering on the track, I think I spun one of the car because I didn't see, I didn't notice it.
Well, it's a tough race for you, but you've still picked up some pretty sizable points for the championship coming out of today. How does Portimao look for you in terms of getting back on the horse and maybe having an opportunity to fight with a car that's 100%?
Well, I'll hope for the best for Portimao. It's a really nice track. I kind of like it, but we will see.
We certainly will. Bozidar Andreev there joining us and picking up P3 in GT3 AM. We've got your GT3 AM winner, though, here with us here, Ivo Serafimov. And Ivo, it was looking very close at the end of the race there. It was a case of maybe 1 lap, 2 laps more, and Milan Milchev might have found a way through.
Yes, it was definitely scary in the end because I had no fuel and I have to lift the throttle. So I was lucky this time finishing, but I'll try to put more fuel in the next couple of races because it is not very funny to watch the tank level all the time. The last 3 laps were nightmare.
I can only imagine when you're there sat trying to make sure that you got enough to get over to the line. You just about managed it. You walked into today as the championship leader, the way that penalties came about after Sebring. You now walk out of here with a bigger margin than you walked in with. So how is the confidence there in the Acura, knowing that you're picking up these results and you're getting some fantastic drive coming out here and heading over to Portimao?
You should ask me about this confidence after the penalty report of this session because I have some issues. Let's see how it and so as a matter of fact, I'm very happy. I managed to survive a couple of times because there was a couple of situations I was nearby, and one in the start, two in the with the GT4 car. So I have to revision my overtake maneuvers and behavior with GT4s because I have no confidence, no experience with multi-class races. So this is something I should work on.
So let's just very quickly just discuss that because, of course, you had that contact with Martin Yankov, the GT4 championship leader, going into this round. For you, how difficult was it in that braking zone? Because you had Rusty Koshev, who was over a bit in the middle of the road, and that might have maybe kept a couple of those GT4s a little bit more unsighted for you?
A moment of hesitation caused me changing line in the last moment, and it was a severe maneuver. As a matter of fact, there is a net code, but I will leave to the judges to judge on this situation. As I said, I need some practice with multi-class to try to cope with this moment and to make a better decision.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck, not only with the stewards, but also moving on to Portimao. There is your championship leader, Ivo Serafimov. The gap, we do not know how much it will be, but a time that we exit here from Watkins Glen. We do have the chance, though, to talk to Rostislav Koshev, who is here along with us. P number 2 here today. And Rostislav, we were just talking with Ivo about the contact with Martin Yankov going through. You would have had the biggest box seat to that incident out of anybody else. So talk us through that from your perspective, seeing what happened to the championship leader.
Well, first of all, it was a great race. I had a lot of fun, especially with Alex at the end. But for the contacts, I think I missed because I was so focused on overtaking the guys in front. I didn't realize there were 2 GT3s behind us. I thought it was only Yuli. So I wanted to go for a dive or to see if I had an opportunity to overtake. Then I just saw Ivo behind me. Then he made the dive, so I cancelled my attack, and it was a bit of a messy situation. We have to review it further to see what exactly happened, but yeah.
I tell you what, watching the final 10 minutes of this race, seeing how hard you were battling with Alex Stefanov, it's something that I love out of this GT4 category. We saw some brilliant battling, but from your perspective, you had the move a couple of times, but you couldn't quite secure it. What do you think was the difference maker in those final 10 minutes?
Well, Alex had a great pace today, all day. He went very good time in practice. He was first in qualifying, nearly, I think, or it was third. But he had a very good pace overall. So I guess I had just the race pace, just enough to catch him, but didn't have the pace to overtake him cleanly.
So moving along, Portimao. Obviously, you're looking around at the championship, and Alex Stefanov's only got one round in the books. Martin Yankov can only manage P5. So championship's yours as far as my math goes as you head to Portimao by a couple points. So does that give you an approach different, moving from being in a position where you're chasing to a position now where you're king of the hill?
Well, no, I was pushing hard every race because you never know. I could be taken out or I can take out someone. You know, it's multi-class racing. It's quite hectic, so you never know what race, what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna push max to the end.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck with that, and we see that every time you go out and race. Rostislav Koshev, they're picking up P2 overall, but your winner in GT4 was Alex Stefanov, who's with me now. Now, Alex, first start of the season, so maybe not quite sure what to expect from the talent level out there, but you had to really work hard, especially when you had that lead in the first part of the race, and then after the pit stops, it all started to come back towards you once again. Just talk us through your perspective of the opening half of the race.
Hello. Thank you for the race to all racers, especially for Rusty and Martin Yankov. I'm very sad for him. Yeah, you asked me about pace. Yeah, I started with a very good pace, but something happened after the pit stop, and I nearly lost actually I lost the position, the first place, and Rusty was fighting for it. But yeah, I was brave and just couldn't lost the first position, so I was fighting all the time.
Talk us through that mentality of when you're battling, because it looked like every single time you lost that position, you were immediately back on it, trying to go and make that move just as aggressive as possible. Was that sort of your mindset of the moment I lose this place, I'm immediately going to fight to get it back? Or was there more of a case of just the opportunity presented itself to you?
I don't know how, actually, I don't know how to explain, but yeah, actually, I see that I was fast on the straights, of course, of the slipstream, but I was keep pushing, and I think it worked.
Well, you pick up your first victory of the season on your first start of the season. We'll look over at Portimao and ask the question, can you make it 2 from 2?
I don't know, let's see.
Well, we'll wish you the best of luck with that. Alex Stefanov joining us there and picking up victory overall in the GT4 category, which is going to now bring the curtain down to a close here from Watkins Glen, your Sim Gear post-race press conference, and of course the Sim Gear GT Masters here in 2025. There is fantastic action with us at Pitlane.TV. You only have to wait 7 days for that third round of the championship to bring itself to the Ford. That will be at Portimao, and it will be with us same time, same place. So you definitely do not want to miss it with us here on Pitlane.TV. With everything that has been brought together, my name has been Jake Sperry. This has been, at least at the front, an easy day at the office for a driver like Vladislav Shopov. He's worked out a couple things with that Porsche, and now he's got it singing to his tune, knowing that he doesn't have anything to worry about as car number 1. His gap starting to claw back now on Christian Novev, to the point where it could very well be almost even keel as they head themselves over to Portimao. But there are bigger questions to be asked in GT3 AM and GT4. The question of, will there be be a penalty for Ivo Serafimov after his contact with Martin Yankov here today? Will Martin Yankov be able to get himself back on the horse and look to challenge Rosti Koshev and the likes of Nikolai Mikov, who are able to score points better than him today? Or will there be a case for the likes of Bozhidar Andreev to fight back, for Milen Milchev to be within this championship hunt and say this is where they can start looking at GT3 AM and saying it's their championship that they can go and win? The only way you can find out what happens next is if you join us in 7 days' time. We are done here from upstate New York. We'll see you on the south coast of Portugal when we tackle the Autodromo do Algarve at Portimao.
Evolution begins with motivation. Motivation for something better. For something that moves you like a real vision. Newer, stronger, better. Like the roots of a tree that connects everything. At your free will, try to imagine your rig connected at your emotions. Nowadays, technology creates feelings. Feelings that haunt you on every race with better performance each time. What do you expect from yourself? You want to eat the competition with a rig that never let you down. Speed, energy, adrenaline. Emotions are coming to you. Stay tuned.
jump in